Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you, everyone who's been waiting for me. Let's give ourselves a minute before you actually see me live. We have to wait for a sec before we begin. Lots of updates, lots of stuff to talk about. See where we are. And looks like we're live now. Thank you so much, everyone who's been waiting for me. And I missed you guys yesterday. Firstly, thank you for everyone who asked about me yesterday. It was an unintentional break. When your body tells you enough is enough, go to sleep. That's what happened. So I missed you too. And thank you for everyone who sent me messages. But yeah, it was just your body switching off after you keep on going and going. So you listen to your body. Patricia, thank you so much for your super. And John Doe. And welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I missed you a lot yesterday. And whenever you miss a day, there's a lot to talk about. So I published a video earlier on about the latest negotiation updates and a senior figure from Hamas. If you haven't watched it, you can watch it after this live stream. You have some time. And I have another video coming up soon while you will be with me on this live stream. You can watch it after the live stream as well. Very important about changes in what Israel's doing, significant things they've done yesterday in Lebanon, and a coordination in Gaza. And what seems to be a very well coordinated attack from Yemen as well. Clearly, the resistance movements are very well coordinated when it comes to attacks. And we just now had the report that Ansarullah targeted al-Rashrash, which is called Eilat in Hebrew, in the southern part of Israel, or what is now called Israel, with ballistic missiles. Clearly, they're not going nowhere. You know, we've had a couple of days where there was less activity. My interpretation of that is the coordination between the resistance movements and Ansarullah, and the slight reduction, some sort of understanding that they had, obviously, because we've seen things. Well, I called it a semi-ceasefire, but, you know, it's not declared, but clearly there's coordination and there's understanding going on. Francis Fitzgerald, thank you very much for your super thanks. I really appreciate it. You said you thought Whitey booted me after the Hamas speech. Lol. I'm glad you're well and back. No, they haven't, but there are problems. The problems are lately, you see, when you upload a video, you have automatic settings. So my default settings with the videos, just to keep you in the loop, are comments on. People comment, right? All of a sudden, you publish the video, comments are off. Okay, no one's commenting. Usually have immediate comments. You know, people tell you, oh, first comment, and then so they go away. Then you go and change the setting. You turn the comments on, and then they go back off. So we reported it to YouTube twice. Let's hope YouTube will work on it and resolve it as soon as possible. I'm in constant communication with them when there are any issues. And obviously, I also recommend any of you who face any problems to also report them, flag them up, so that they understand. Because, you know, you automatically have theories, right? We all automatically have theories, but it's important to take action regardless of the theories that we have. So if we feel like there's a certain problem, you deal with it like you would in any situation, really, and see what happens. But yeah, Alan Marwin, thank you so much for your super thanks. Anyone who sends super thanks, really, I mean, thank you so much. Consider yourself part of the journey and part of my work, really. You need to understand this is very important, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. And Kirk as well, thank you so much. Bless you, brother, and your family. And thank you for everyone greeting and coming in now. So what I'll do, as usual with every live stream, I will talk to you about Yahya Sinwar walking like a boss in Gaza, and then I'll open the space up for you to share your thoughts, and obviously send questions. If you wouldn't mind questions, highlight them, and I will do my best to reach as much as possible from them. So we've had reports from Israel ever since the beginning of the genocide. Yahya Sinwar is in the tunnels. He's detached from reality. He's not communicating with the Hamas members abroad. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. He's eating food while the people are starving. He's Ziowood in action. Anyway, later they released a supposed video of someone walking from the back looking like Yahya Sinwar. And then all of a sudden they have his shoe, right? As if they DNA checked it. Turns out it was cleaner than their souls, like I said in that earlier video when they found his shoe. Cleaner than all of them. Yahya Sinwar's shoe, cleaner than all of Israeli leadership. Pure shoe. Unlike their rotten souls. So now... then they started saying, oh no, Yahya Sinwar controls the negotiations. So he went, poor Yahya Sinwar went from being detached from reality and everything to dictating what happens in the negotiations. Wow, you confused us, ladies and gentlemen. What's happening with this Yahya Sinwar? You know, we're not getting it. Anyway, we just had a report now. We just had a report in Al-Arabi Al-Jadid, a newspaper, that went viral. Went viral like fire, right? What did they say? They quoted a Hamas official, likely to have a Hamas official with Al-Arabi Al-Jadid, right? Qatar-based, if I'm not mistaken. They have their leadership there. Who said that the Hamas leader recently came out of the tunnels and met with the organization's fighters in the field. There were some leaked images. One of them was the one that I showed you, the leaked. I can't verify it. It was a leaked image. He met the fighters on the field. And then it was outrage in Israel. Oh my good Lord, how are the hostages waiting, right? The hostages, not the prisoners of war, kidnapped to release actual hostages who are being beaten and tortured to death in Israel. And being treated nicely, by the way. You saw what they said, the Israeli prisoners in Gaza who left Gaza. We were treated well. Don't forget that, because there's a lot of spin going on. They were treated well fed, taken care of, medical care, hugging Al-Qassam fighters when they leave. You saw the images. And people worked hard for the videos not to be released and spinning them. And you had these spinning tabloids here and, oh, look, they're shaming them. Yeah. Making an effort to go back and shake the hand of the fighter who kept you safe for a while. This is what they did. And when they saw that, what they call the Hasbara attack with the first... he released on a humanitarian basis. Yocheved Lifshitz, old woman, Hamas said, Israel, we want to release that woman on a humanitarian basis. She is old and frail. We want to give her back to you. No, nothing in return. Nothing in return, just take her. What did Israel say? No, we don't want to take her. We don't want to take her. Do you know how they left? Do you know how they released her? They gave her to Egypt. Israel didn't want to take its own prisoners, telling me that they're worried about their prisoners. They were liars. They don't care about anyone, these people. Netanyahu, he'll sell his mother for himself. And this Zionist genocidal satanic ideology. Let's not forget that. People telling you the hostages, this, they kill them. They killed their hostages. What do you mean hostages? They killed them. They killed over 80, 50 of which in the first month. Anyway, after Sinwar was reportedly out walking like a boss in the streets of Gaza, they continued the report. Okay? The headquarters then in Israel, the news about Sinwar's departure to the streets of Gaza was checked and found to be reliable by intelligence officials. The Israeli government they're saying that, reports from Israel, found to be reliable by intelligence officials. So you know that Sinwar was walking around in the streets. John Doe, thank you again very much, brother. I really appreciate your super thanks, and everyone. Oh, so they know. Okay. So why did you allow that to happen? Apparently he's the most wanted man. $400,000 bounty. What happened, Israel? You're monitoring everything in Gaza. Why? That could have been something they spoke about in the negotiations, and another thing they're not talking about. Like the aid going to the north, like the release of the prisoners, like the people going back to the north, like the withdrawal of their army, but not talking about it. Clearly, Sinwar said one of the conditions, I'm going out in the streets of Gaza and you can't touch me. And they listen, like little chickens, like the little cowards they are. That could probably be it. Or that's number one. Number two, he went out and challenged them, defiant to the man. Isn't scared of death, like all of the Palestinian people, especially the resistance fighters. They're not scared of death, unlike the terrorist cowards of the IOF. Challenged them. He did that before. He did that in 2021. As a matter of fact, in the escalation of 2021, he had a speech and he said, you know what? I'm going to challenge Israel. Now I'm just going to walk down the street. And if they want to target me, let's see. He walked down the street, strolled from the head office to another place in Gaza. Nothing happened. Either there's an agreement. If you assassinate this man, you will face something bigger. Or he's just defiant and showing them bravery. Right? Unlike their coward leaders. And he can walk between his people, by the way. He can walk between his people safe. Can Netanyahu walk between his people safe? One of his ministers was being sworn at, almost ambushed yesterday, because when he went out from the families of the kidnapped Israel, saying, you don't do enough. But Yahya Sinwar can walk in Gaza. From the people, by the people, resisting the biggest genocide in the 21st century. And they worked so hard to put him down, give him a bad image, affect the social cohesion in Gaza. It didn't work. And then you'll have people, oh, you brought them on yourself. What do you mean, brother? Trying to deflect from the fact that you have a genocidal satanic death cult supported by genocidal cartel operating globally. Who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? They've been under occupation, these poor refugees, 75 years. Telling you it's their fault. It's their fault for suffering. Oh. Action. This is the example, prime example. A woman being raped. And then being blamed for slapping the victim back or swearing at him. How dare you? Well, that's the case of Palestine. The thing with Palestine, the land, it's a brave woman. Doesn't back down, doesn't care what people think, resilient and resists. But this genocide has shown that it's even far worse than that, far worse than you can imagine. And you still have these people trying to spin things around, right? Anyway, apart from the fact that it's known by intelligence officials, by reliable intelligence officials in Israel, they had another report about Sinwar. What did they say? An Israeli official told Israeli media, Sinwar's departure is not recognized operationally. Wow, not recognized operationally. But your intelligence sources told you he was out. And you didn't do anything to him. This man you're supposedly hunting, and Netanyahu said, you're a dead man, either dead or surrender. And don't forget the threats. Don't forget the threats a couple of months ago. And according to the same official who reported this to Al Arab Al Jadid, he said Hamas is holding more than 30 soldiers, officers, who were kidnapped on the 7th of October and are being held in very secure places far from Israel's hands. The only way to release them is through serious negotiations, followed by full commitment to a ceasefire and rehabilitation. Then he added, he recently came out, Yahya Sinwar, out of the tunnels and met with the organization's fighters in the field, in areas where there were battles with the IDF. The strength of the resistance position and its ability to confront the IDF. This is showing strength from the Palestinian resistance. That's what it shows. 6 months, a genocidal satanic death cult supported with the military might of the genocidal US empire, of the genocidal European countries that support it. Not all of them do. The governments, some people too, can't do anything with Hamas. Simple. So that's when it comes to Yahya Sinwar. Obviously, no one's going to go out. And now they're threatening. We're going to go to Rafah is imminent and Rafah is imminent. They just withdrew their last fighting force, not the fighting force, the policing force of Nahal from Gaza. So technically, they took everyone out in preparation for 2 reservist brigades to go in. If you want to fight, you don't send in the reservists first, if you're serious about anything, by the way. Now, with the same Hamas official who I quoted previously, Khalil al-Hayya, who said that everything about the negotiation, he also mentioned that if you want to go to Rafah, you will be met with the harder resistance. If you want to go to Rafah, and we don't want war in Rafah. We want to reach a deal. We're showing that we want to reach a deal. Clearly, though, you need to be blind unless you establish that it's Benjamin Netanyahu and his, what do you want to describe? Racist, lunatic, maniac, psychopathic government and people who support him. They're the ones rejecting it. Hamas want a deal. They showed leniency. As a matter of fact, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, they offered them a deal from day one. They said we're willing to engage in immediate prisoner swap negotiations. That's the main aim. Release the prisoners. That's what they said. And then you have this lunatic psychopath, Benjamin Netanyahu, extending everything and not being criticized. You know, the only criticism he'll receive from the EU is, we have comments on your level of use of force in Gaza. Boo-hoo. The level of force, committing 15,000 children, complaining about the level of force, unable to name a genocide. What kind of people are we talking about? What kind of mentality? Well, who are these people? What are they? What are they? Do they have a moral compass? Do they believe in any? What do they believe in exactly? Unable to condemn the slaughter of 35,000 people. Unable to condemn bombing hospitals, bombing churches, bombing mosques, bombing universities. But That's the world you live in. That's your government, most likely. And that's what about it, what I wanted to tell you about in this live stream. Now I'll open the space up for all of you. If you have any questions, just highlight them, please, for me, so I can make it easier to address. Eslinsky, thank you so much. Said thank you for your efforts. Thank you so much for your super thanks, and everyone else. Shall we start from bottom up? Yeah, probably make it easier. Kate, why did Hamas offer 5 years truce, willing to disband? Haven't they learned from Gaddafi, Saddam? Even North Korea will never give up their arms. Interesting question. But if you watched my video, I elaborated on their position. So the offer for truce is a new, temporary offer for truce without giving up the historical rights over, number one, all of Palestine, and the historical rights of the refugees and everything. And when they talk about a two-state, they'll tell you West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. I'm against a two-state solution. I promote a one-state solution. From Hamas's perspective, they say we're willing to agree with it temporarily without giving up the rights and a long-term truce. However, with regards to giving up the arms, as long as it's in a national sovereign army. All of it is hypothetical. Can they? Will they have a national? Will Israel allow it under any agreement? They know they're done. They call it a terror state. It'll be between in Gaza and the West Bank. We won't agree to a Fatahstan or Hamastan. So from Hamas, to show you that I'm willing to, right? So you won't come against me and tell me, oh, no, you're not. It's not. Clearly, the guys are showing way more leniency in diplomacy than Benjamin Netanyahu. However, it's unrealistic, really. I think they're just saying it to show people that we actually can and are willing, right, to have a temporary solution. They know that really and truly Israel won't agree to a Palestinian state, at least an independent Palestinian state. I mean, Israel would agree to something like the current Palestinian president, a position of semi-mayor with very, very limited responsibilities, does as he's told, has no control of everything. Hell, some mayors in Israel have more authority than Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority. Man can't walk, can't blink unless he's approved by Israel. Nothing. And they're mad now. They're mad with Hamas now. Why are they mad with them? Because they are about to achieve something politically through armed resistance after facing a genocide that him and his crew couldn't face by licking Zionist shoes for 31 years with the Oslo Accords. It's difficult for him to stomach that. And that's why Israel won't agree to a two-state solution. They're just saying it, really. Brian Bean, thank you so much, said Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Herc Owen, you said, I blame the sellout coward in Egypt. Sisi is complicit. Look, everyone bears responsibility. The Egyptian government, they have responsibility. Everyone who didn't do enough to prevent the genocide, they have responsibility. How can it be acceptable that you will have everything you know where the tents are in Rafah? They're on the border. So the wall is there. So the people will post videos living on these tents, and they'll tell you, look, this is where we are, and this is the electricity there, and this is here. Where's your human responsibility, really? Ansarullah saying, what do you see the future of the US dollar? Will the dollar crash this year or next? Rumors the Saudis, Iranians, etc. will dump the dollar for oil status quo and go full BRICS currency for oil soon. Look, Iran, yes, probably. Saudi Arabia, they've been shifting from the US as well. They haven't taken a significant step to show that they can depart from the US dollar that quickly, that heavily. It needs to be something coordinated with the BRICS. The recent most significant act that was taken was by China and Russia, who both agreed to only deal with their national currencies and ditch the US dollar. Nothing. And there's not much that the US can do about it. There's not much that the US can do about it. However, what you need to remember is the value of the dollar isn't just dependent on the use or lack of, it's a significant part, but it's not just that. That will hit it, but the use of the currency, the level of the currency, the strength of the currency is dependent on many things. How it's viewed internationally, what productivity it's backed by, how reliable it's seen. It's how it's viewed, really, because it's not backed by anything. They took it off gold from the 70s, right? You have hardly any currency attached to the rate of gold, for example. So they just print money. And modern day economy, it's debt-based economy. Print money, commit genocides across the world, do whatever you like and impose yourself, right? That's what's happening. So I think it's a process. However, these small steps, and if you take a significant step like Saudi Arabia, for example, saying we'll only trade oil with non-US dollar currencies, or whether that will be a very, very big blow. But then you would need to bear in mind, what's the percentage of the oil trade when it comes to all of the trade? It's not just oil, there's a big factor, but you have lots of stuff that are not related to oil. However, why I say the position of China and Russia is very important, China more than Russia, because China is the biggest producer on earth. They have ports in the United States controlled by them. And many people in the United States criticize that, by the way. They attack China, and you're indebted to China, trillions you owe China. And they threatened that they won't pay it. Imagine that. So, yeah, it's a long process, obviously, before you kind of completely eliminate it. Because, look, no matter what happens to the United States of America as a country, it's not like if China supersedes them or Russia supersedes them, all of a sudden they'll become like a mini power. No, they will remain a superpower. They will remain very, very powerful. The only thing that will happen is that it will decrease their reach across the world. This bully state, they're acting like an international bully, getting whatever the hell they want with the power of weapons, of destruction, of blood. And that can continue. And some people come up with this stupid argument. They're like, oh, do you prefer China over the US? I don't prefer neither. But the difference between China and the US is China doesn't interfere with me like you do. Look at Palestine, imposing a genocidal state on the indigenous people. Look at what they've done in Latin America, close to home, all across the world, right? Russia, China, they don't do the same. Oh, would you rather be under Chinese control? I don't want to be under anyone's control. Let everyone live as they are. Every nation, let them have their own democratic system. Let the people represent who they want, bring to power who they want. I don't want to be under China's control or the US control. Why? Well, why should someone control everything? You shouldn't. You know what I mean? So it would take some time, obviously. It's not like the US is going to be, no, the US is going to remain powerful as a country. John Doe, thank you so much again. To Sinwar's pure and brand new shoes walking in the streets of Gaza. Well, he probably used an older pair of shoes, but hey. Apparently Israel stole his shoe, poor man. He's probably walking in socks now, according to Israeli reports. Talal Mansour, Turkey suspended trade with Israel. What are the repercussions of Turkey as a NATO member? Look, not all of the NATO countries have to be aligned in terms of foreign policy. There is pressure, obviously. They try and dictate, but that's not the case. I mean, not all of the EU states have the same exact position. when it comes to Israel. Some of them are more Zionist than others, as you can see. However, it's a good move from Turkey. Late move, but it's a good move. And now the flotilla is going soon, hopefully next week, with some interesting figures on it. The descendants of Che Guevara, Nelson Mandela. I'd like to see what Israel does. Label it as an anti-Semitic flotilla. I'm not sure what they'd say. And now they're saying all of the protests in the US are anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic! To a level where the Jewish participants in the protests, do you know what they did? They started to have a big sign on their tent, Jewish people here. They're like, how dare you? How dare you? Everything that opposes them is anti-Semitic. They're making a mockery out of themselves. Traveler is saying, just 1 second, please. Yeah, where were we? Traveler was saying, Mahmoud, what are your thoughts on current events in Gaza with Islamic eschatology? Look, the conflict that's happening is a human conflict. Let's get that straight. If anyone faced anything as such, if any nation faced oppression, you will have opposition, whether it's Gaza, Muslims, non-Muslims. Genocides happened with people with every background, really. Almost. In terms of the people who are fighting in Gaza, most of them are fighting from an Islamic belief or perspective, not from an Islamic eschatology perspective. Let's get that straight. What motivates them to fight? They have belief motivates them to fight. Like you would have a different approach towards a battle, for example, if you believe in the hereafter, that there's a reward, that this life is temporary. All of these things. With regards to widespread ideologies of eschatology or end of days, from an Islamic perspective, it's unsubstantiated. Unsubstantiated. God told his prophet, you don't know where the end of time is. Yet people come out with these unsubstantiated stories, make it up as if we're living in the age of... every time there's some tensions, people tell you, World War III, end of days, that's it, everyone's... But in terms of belief, they're fighting from, most of them, from a belief perspective, and they're not waiting for anyone to come and save them. Because Lord knows hardly anyone came to support the Palestinian people throughout their history. John Doe, thanks again. Thank you so much. You're so kind. Are people, please, in Gaza in a better condition, food, meds, and medical assistance? If before 7th of October, Gaza was at 8 scale of 12, they were 2 out of 12 in the peak of genocide. Where are we now? 5, 7? It's still low. Why? Because whatever you're getting is barely feeding the people. That's nothing sustainable. So you're talking about literally giving someone who's starving a meal, right? Barely getting people anything, the things that they need. It's just an initial boost. What you need is something sustainable and long-lasting, and for Israel to leave the Palestinians the hell alone. I mean, if they leave them the hell alone, at least in Gaza and the West Bank, they will prosper. But they want to choke them. They want to choke them to death. That's what they want. Thinking that they will be able to force them out completely, make Gaza uninhabitable. Right? This is what they want. So it's still very, very bad, but at least there's something going in. Like you were talking about famine, literally. And I strongly suspect or tend to believe that this is linked to the negotiations, and it's not being declared primarily for Israel's internal image. Because if that would be declared, that I'm giving that to them as part of the negotiations, Netanyahu would start to have way too much criticism from both sides, because he's getting criticism from the far right who want him to go further. He's getting criticism from the majority of the population who just want a solution, either not this way, so we disagree with your tactic, but not entirely against what's happening, or some number of the people who actually oppose what Israel's doing and call it a genocide as it is. So he's stuck in this position, Benjamin Netanyahu, and he can't afford to be seen as a person who concedes, who give Hamas something for nothing. Because think about it this way, we're giving him nothing apart from their survival and perseverance. Irene Z, thank you so much. And IG to me, thank you so much. Salam Mahmoud, did you see the US congressman trying to link Prophet Abraham, God, the covenant between them and the real Israelites with Netanyahu's thug state? You see, what's baffling is they've been telling us for the past 20 years about these stupid, ignorant movements that call themselves Islamic, in many cases supported by the US, because don't forget, they supported who called themselves the Mujahideen in the 80s. They supported Al-Qaeda in the beginning. They funded ISIS. They supported them. They released the man from prison and then you let them. Let's not forget that. But they were telling you they're using religion for political means. Talk about secularism, right? Yet, when it comes to Israel, yeah, God gave them the land. All of a sudden, it's fine to talk God and politics when it comes to Israel. Whoa, what are you playing with? Secondly, Abraham. Number one, if I don't believe your religion, I'm not bound by it. That's number one. Okay? Number two, let's take the quote. What does it say? To your descendant, I shall give this land. Okay. Number one, descendant. Okay. Descendant, who's descendant? And then Abraham. Okay. And then this land. What's the description? Is it indefinite? That's number one. Secondly, are you even related to Abraham? Ashkenazi European Jews coming from Eastern Europe. What relation do you have to Abraham? Who are you fooling? Then you talk about, okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it from a religious perspective. Okay, you believe that God gave you the land, although I already established. What do you mean, Abraham? Which land and descendant? We're talking about descendants indefinitely. Anyway, as if God is a state agent or a property developer. What do you think? God is your servant, giving you something for life, and that's it. Secondly, anyway, okay, you believe that. What do your 10 commandments tell you? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, you shall not covet. So you constantly go against the 10 commandments and you're speaking on behalf of Judaism, but you like God's promise. And in many cases, atheists, and everyone's entitled, believe what the hell you want to believe. I don't care. But they're atheists and they'll tell you, I believe in God's promise. So you don't believe in God, but you believe he promised the land. What kind of who are you joking? Firstly, Herzl's actual upbringing is a matter of debate, whether the man is genuinely Jewish or what have you. Ben Gurion, first Israeli prime minister, atheist. Benjamin Netanyahu, atheist. So many of them atheists. And then listen to the Jewish Orthodox community in Israel. Why do they constantly criticize Zionism? Because to them, it's not religious. Why do you have so many people not supporting them from Jewish people across the world? and now more than ever, because they don't believe they represent Judaism. From a religious perspective, they'll tell you you're going against the Torah. From a non-religious perspective, secularist Jews or Jews by tradition, not in my name. That's what they'll tell you, not in my name. So why are you talking in their name? Who enabled you to talk in anyone's name? And why is it acceptable globally? So hold on a second. If an organization comes tomorrow, calls themselves Islamic, and they want to occupy the world, or a Christian movement comes up, tells you this is the only Christian state, only Christians live here, this is only Christian people, no one else is allowed here, what would I say that they represent Christianity? Would I say why are the non-Jewish Zionists so keen on always attributing Israel to Judaism? It's like, don't you think that harms Judaism as a religion? Think about it this way. If they're actually representing Judaism, what would you think? What would you think? But that's why we constantly say they don't represent Judaism. They use Judaism as a front. As a matter of fact, Zionism ethnicized Judaism. This is what their whole purpose was. And then they come up with the term anti-Semitism to relate the state to people rather than people with religion. Because if you want to have a problem with religion, you would be anti-Jewish. If you are anti-Jewish religion, let's say. If you don't like Islam, then be anti-Muslim. Why are you calling it anti-Semitic? Are they Semitic by race? Of course they're not. 100% they're not. I'm Semitic by race. Palestinian people of the Levant, that's Semitism, that's Semitic people. But someone coming from Europe who haven't been smelling anything to do with the Middle East for ever, probably, and then telling me this land is mine, it's Semitic, and But this man, this congressman, and other figures in the US or in the pro-Israel Christian community, they're working really hard because the narrative is collapsing. There's more and more Christians realizing, oh no, hold on a second, these are not God's chosen people. Or, oh, we've been lied to, right? We've been lied to. So they're on a desperate attempt to show you that these are God's chosen people and they should be in that land biblically. And they don't. These people who believe that, by the way, they don't realize how much they contradict themselves. So with that belief, you enable these people to mercilessly commit genocide, to kill Christians. You've seen what they do in Jerusalem, some of these settlers. Walk next to some of the oldest churches in history, spit at them, destroy images of Mary and Jesus, peace be upon them, attacking Christian missionaries and worshippers, bully them, terrorize them. In many cases, physical attack and assault. What Christianity are you talking about? So they're on a desperate attempt to revive this Zionist Christianity and push it forward. Similarly to the non-declared Zionists in the Arab and Muslim world who won't outright tell you I'm Zionist, but we will tell you, no, hold on a second, they have a right. Some of them. Tashikoma, as there are more news of Israel is running away to other countries, they're not releasing figures. So the only figures we can get is the number of departures from Israeli airports. And that's not always published. That's not always published. When the Israeli Hamas, the Central Committee of Statistics, they stopped releasing official stats from November because they were Massive. Back then, 1 million just due to the war have already gone. Apart from the 1.2 million who already fled Israel before, excluding their descendants. That's in a month. So we were half a year in. If 1 million happened in a month, right? How much are we talking about now? If you'd be conservative if you say another 1 million. So you have a vast majority Palestinians between the river to the sea, subject to control of a little genocidal satanic death cult, supported by countries who claim to be democratic and work to promote human rights and equality, right? Concerned about every little thing of offending an ant. But when Israel commits a genocide, no, they're fine. That's okay. Collateral damage. Michi Mama, thank you so much for your super thanks. He said, Biden doesn't even hear us. Did you hear? He said money to Ukraine, Israel is for world peace. He is mentally bonkers. Look, I think we've established by now that Joe Biden lacks capacity. The fact that he lacks capacity, to say the least, okay, and he's running supposedly the world's biggest superpower is quite alarming. You know, the fact that he was out there in a speech telling a woman I was 30, she was 12, calling Sisi, the president of Mexico, calling Rafah Haifa, who asked Israelis not to go to Haifa, apart from the wandering around in the fields. It's worrying, right? But that's what you have. And all of a sudden, democracy reveals itself in the campuses of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Next thing, they'll bring you the National Guard to disperse these protests in the biggest universities in the United States. Not say, hold on a second, now there's an actual public demand, we need to shift. We made a mistake, we need to listen to our people. We're a democratic state. No. No, all of them are anti-Semitic, including the Jews. And we need to take them down. They've been brutally hitting people. Have you seen the poor cameraman and poor students sitting there with the police brutality? What is this? Okay, let's go up, see if we had anything before. Herc Owen, thank you so much for your super thanks. Totally agree with that. It's clear as daylight, really. And we had Garfi M. Do you think these Israelis are not true ethnic Jews, but in fact, Ya'juj and Ma'juj? I'm not Islamist expert, but do you know? Okay, you don't have to be any ethnicity to be a Jew. Judaism is a religion. That's why you have Jews in Ethiopia, Jews in Europe, Jews in Latin America. It's a religion. What they've done, what Zionism has done, or tried to do, and succeeded to a very large extent, is make Judaism an ethnicity rather than a religion. Okay? Why did they do that? For a neo-colonial political project. The easiest way to control people is through religious manipulation. Religious manipulation. distorting the religion, twisting it, misinterpreting it, and controlling people through religion. Why? Because God said so, not me. How convenient is that? God promised us, God told us, God this, God that. You can't argue with that. And that's why Zionism, if you research the early days of Zionism, number one, to this day, people from the Orthodox Jewish community, they swear at Herzl, by the way, who established Zionism. They used to, even in Israel, they used to, in many cases, put posters of Herzl and some statements he made previously and tell you, look what this man believes or thinks. However, with regards to Zionism as a movement, they're obviously talking in the name of Judaism. Although the immigration to the Holy Land, it was initially done mostly by Christian missionaries who believed they had to be in the Holy Land. And then you had Zionism that promoted the push for the Jewish people for, again, Christian beliefs about things related to the end times and what have you. And I'll reach what they used to call the Jewish problem in Europe in a second. But in the beginning of the 20th century, Zionism had almost no religious support whatsoever. If you go to the early 20th century, go and type, Google, Jewish protests against Zionism, early 20th century. Thousands, tens of thousands of Orthodox Jews against Zionism, blatantly. It's against our religion, it's against this, it's against that. They started to gain momentum within the religious Orthodox community by convincing some religious scholars that it's fine to have a state without their belief of the Messiah coming, okay? Started to convince a couple of people from the ultra-Orthodox community. They started to get momentum, bit by bit. However, clear as day, to this day, most of them don't believe you. Most of them don't believe you. Those who are, for example, in Israel, you have with Netanyahu's government, for example, two of the biggest organizations representing the Haredi community. You might ask, okay, are they Zionist or not? Yeah, many of them are Zionist, yes. However, it's a relationship of convenience. Why? Because Netanyahu would promise them things like, we won't allow trains in the Shabbat in your area or in general or what have you. We'll fund more things to do with your... Not because he cares about religion, it's because he wants to protect his coalition and be in power. And to them, great, we're getting money. One of these people, the leader of the Mizrahi or Sfaradi Jewish community, he was in prison for at least, I think, 5 years for corruption. Money. You need to understand, lots of it is about money. The other movement that represents the Ashkenazi Haredi community, they will say things that you would think they're a leftist organization, even when it comes to Palestinians, right? And in many cases, they pass legislations in the Israeli parliament with Palestinian citizens of Israel, right? Then you reach the Jewish problem. Zionism was a solution to what Europe called the Jewish problem. Hitler, the neo-Nazi ideology, the supremacist ideology in Europe, they hated Jewish people. They didn't face that in Arab and Muslim countries, never. Before Zionism came to Palestine, we lived with our Jewish and neighbors for centuries. Let's not forget that. There are some communities in the West Bank who are some of the authentic Jewish communities, the Samaritans, still there. Zionism was the solution for what Europe called the Jewish problem. Hitler, final solution for the Jewish problem. All of a sudden, you have a movement calling all Jews to go to Israel. Emigrating from where? Most of you from Europe. Did you find the solution? Yes. Simple. Read about the Ha'avara agreement. The Ha'avara agreement that the Zionist movement had with Hitler to move tens of thousands of Jewish immigrants from Europe to Israel. That was the solution for them. Don't forget that Zionists massacred Jews. Once they had a ship coming to the port of Haifa, actually. I think it was in the 30s. The British mandate at the time, they didn't allow the ship to come. They didn't approve it. The British mandate, because obviously it was the British mandate of Palestine. Zionist terrorist militias didn't like that. What did they do? They took the ship down with the refugees, with the Jewish refugees from Europe. All of this Jewish is a front. It's a massive lie, just for control. And it's not the first time in history that it's evident in many places how religion was used to control people. It's not something new. Israel happens to be the Jewish representation of that. You had that with Christianity, you have that with Islam, you had that with ideologies that are not religious. Ideologies spoke in the name of communism and were starving people to death, and the top people were filthy rich, talking about communism. You need to understand, and that's what Israel is doing with Judaism. And some people fall for it. Some people fall for it. Teshikoma, so what will happen to the Red Cows plan when the Jews are running away from the place? You see, the question is, who are you leaving there? Netanyahu and his bunch. And, okay, you obviously you will always have some sort of level-headed people everywhere. But if more and more Jewish people with more liberal, open views leave Israel, who are you leaving it to? The more radical people. Now, these people are crazy. They don't care about anything. Itamar Ben-Gvir wanted a bigger retaliation against Iran. They don't think about anything to do with repercussions. They think they are self-sufficient forever. And it's evident. Challenging the US administration, saying we don't want to get weapons from the Goyim, we need to manufacture our own weapons. Right? So many of them have this delusion. And if they have any fantasies with the Red Cow, they'll do it. And despite the fact that they outright say it, they're enabled. They're enabled very much. They're policymakers in Israel now. But even with that, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, for example, they try and tame him as much as possible. Even when it comes to Jerusalem. Because he wanted full control over things to do with Jerusalem and people going there and sacrificing the lamb and what have you. So they can still press ahead with any ridiculous ideas because they can. I mean, if they can commit a genocide, they'll go and slaughter a red cow or wherever, and tell you that's it. Time has come. Okay, where were we? Shannon L and Lee M, thank you so much for your supers. You said, I can't wait for the National Democratic Convention in Chicago. It will be a repeat of the 1968 convention where my generation protested against the Vietnam War. Talal Mansour, do you think Blackwater and other paid American mercenaries are involved in the Gaza battle? Not that I heard of. Blackwater, mind you, they have such a bad image, and we haven't heard anything as such. But what we did get from the reports of the Palestinian resistance, that there were people who were speaking in foreign languages. Now, that could have easily been dual national Israeli. Some of them will come from France, from Britain, from the US, and they'll be fine going back, by the way. So you can go and commit genocide against the Palestinians in the name of the Jewish state of Israel and come back, it's fine. But human trafficked to Syria when you're a teenager and being exploited and come, no, you can die outside. But if you want to go and commit genocide for Israel, that's fine, it's okay. They agree to that. Plus, if this country's own people aren't willing to die for it, which stupid fool from abroad would want to go and die for it? Who? I mean, you must be thick as hell to do that. Because the ones going there to fight in Israel are thick as hell. Anyone with an ounce of brain wouldn't serve, or would run away from the army. Just an ounce of brain. Go and die for who? For Bibi and Sarah Netanyahu? For what? You haven't achieved anything. But if they achieved something, it's like you think, they haven't achieved anything but destruction and misery for poor civilians and child murdering. That's what they've achieved. But apart from that, Hamas, no, you won't get rid of Hamas. Or the Palestinian people, by the way. It's an ethnic cleansing campaign. Tashikoma, what happened to the forced military conscript on ultra-Orthodox Jews by Bibi? It passed. It's still facing lots of problems in Israel, and they're refusing anything to do with it. So when it comes to the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel, I'm just going to check something quickly for you with the law itself, because I'm not sure if it passed or not. They seek another extension. The ultra-Orthodox conscription waiver has become especially charged as Israel's armed forces. Yeah, it's still disputed. It hasn't passed. Disputed, there's lots of problem about it because the people who are asked to go to the army, they're the ones protecting Netanyahu's government. So if the law passes, they'll tell you tomorrow, I'm not part of this government. Simple. And they'll make a deal with someone else. So it hasn't passed yet. I'm not sure if it will pass. You see, so far, they haven't passed laws, but they had aggressive attempts. Like even in April, they cut the funding of yeshivas. I think they backtracked on that as well, which is where the Jewish people study, basically. So telling them, look, if you don't want to go to the army, we'll defund you. We won't fund you anymore. No support, no serving, no support. But I don't think it'll work. And they're facing a massive problem with the army. You know what I mean? Facing a massive, massive problem. Wendy, thank you so much for your super. Love that emoji. Where were we? Ram plans, how those men that were in Palestine killing people go back to their countries and after have a normal life? Because their countries enable it. Britain, an enabler of genocide. The US, an enabler of genocide. France, an enabler of genocide. Hell, they've committed far worse genocides than Israel. What are we talking about? Look at history. How many people did they kill? What Israel is doing in Gaza is peanuts to some of these countries. So they don't care what a person killed 20, 30, 40 people. Nothing. They're supporting the man who okayed the whole genocide. Do you get it? Let alone having someone who only participated, poor thing. He just participated. As if it's fine. As long as it's for Israel. And don't object that, because otherwise you'll be anti-Semitic. Irma Galvan Mahmoud, I have $1 million question. What do you plan to do when things settle down for Palestinians? Will you remain in Britain? Look, obviously, I won't restrict myself to a certain place or a certain country. It would really depend. It would really depend on many things, many responsibilities, many aspects of life. But from my perspective, the main thing is to support as much as possible a reasonable, level-headed solution. Promote it from wherever you are, really, whether you're there, whether you can be productive and effective everywhere on earth nowadays. Everything is open. So long as it's open, you can be effective from everywhere. So it would really depend on so many things, really. There's so many things to it rather than just, packing up and moving. Consider so many responsibilities you have, etc. Kate, what will King of Collaborators do when Israel attacks Rafah? Will they give lip service, continue to meeting in AC room? Tell me which one of them, which King of Collaborators, so I can answer you. Because there are a couple of Kings of Collaborators, right? Not just one of them. And Irma, thank you so much for your super as well. Abdullah, Saudi, Abdullah, okay. Okay, King Abdullah is the Jordanian. The Saudi king officially is Salman, but the one who runs things is the crown prince, so Salman, and the Mohammed bin Salman. MBS is the crown prince who controls the show. Okay, the crown prince. What are they gonna do? Listen, anyone who saw what happened in the first 30 days and did nothing, what are you going to expect from them? Killing 16,000 people in a matter of less than 40 days. Landing a JDAM bomb on Al Ma'madan hospital. A Christian hospital, by the way. Do you know what a JDAM bomb does? It's a gigantic bomb that lands and explodes before it hits the ground to cause as much damage as possible. 500-600 people. And then the hospital management, they made a press conference out of a horror movie. I haven't seen such a scene in a horror movie. I used to watch horror movies. Press conference of a hospital team surrounded by bodies of people who were bombed deliberately. What does the mainstream media do? Spin it. Oh no, it was the Palestinians who did that. They're worse than Israel. Anyone who did that is worse than them. People spinning and lying. As if they didn't know the truth, by the way. In the early days, no one has an excuse to say I didn't know the truth, by the way. Everything was open. All of the mainstream media, everyone active with them, they're on social media too, they were tagged. They were tagged and shown the images from Gaza live. They didn't do a thing. Nothing. They continued covering up a genocide against the innocent people, the innocent children, women, elderly, men. Nothing. So the ones who didn't act at the time, I'm not expecting anything from them now. They'll probably pay lip service, call on Israel to stop, or say like the Saudi foreign minister with his earthquake statement when he said, what's happening is not enough, the efforts are not enough. You need to do more to stop the war. How about you show us what you can do with it? Countries with power, with some leverage, some political leverage, some financial leverage, use something. We're not saying go and fight or whatever, but at least use some sort of leverage and it can be effective. It was effective. It can still be effective. Eileen Strange is asking, I don't know if you addressed this, but do you know if it's true that an Israeli tried to explode a nuke over Iran to destroy the grid, but Russia stopped it? I heard that report. It seems to me like it's unlikely, really. I mean, it came from one source, I think, on social media. If it ended up, calculate it this way. If Israel eventually attacked Iran with probably a $40 quadcopter from Amazon with a couple of fireworks, indirectly without admitting, and that was the action to them, and they were planning to nuke them instead, well, you have such a massive gap between them, right? So you can actually do something bigger than a couple of fireworks on a quadcopter from Alibaba or Amazon, right? This joke. They didn't. So they try and probably, spread these stories. Plus, it would have had grave consequences, as in massive consequences, nuclear and this and that. So I doubt it. Tashikoma, do you think normalization will happen after this? Well, the declared statements that we have from Saudi Arabia is that if we reach a solution and if the Palestinians, have something, then we will normalize. As if it's the time to give these people some offers. Ready to normalize after a genocide. What are we talking about? Like, did everyone sit and think about it for 1 second? Saudi Arabia saying that, yeah, we will normalize if we reach a solution. And then it wasn't even a confirmation about a Palestinian state or whatever. And look, the US is trying to use it as leverage for Israel to follow its demands. Saudi Arabia, to an extent, know that, but that doesn't take away from the shameful position, right? They came up in the early 2000s with a two-state peace process. All countries will sign a peace treaty with Israel if they recognize and have a Palestinian state. The Israelis ripped it. Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, he ripped it. They ridiculed it. This is the type of mentality you're talking about. Acting like you're dealing with normal human beings. Would any normal human being commit what Israel's done in the past 6 months? Is that a normal human being that you deal with normally? Like, I speak with you, you speak with me. He's capable of a genocide. He committed a genocide. These people need to be sectioned. They need to be in prison, to say the least. Isolation for the rest of their life, somewhere. Any criminal who committed that, telling me talk to them. The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, they've been talking with them for 31 years now. What did they give them? A smack after a smack. That's what they've given them. The countries that dealt with them by force, on the other hand, boy, oh boy, did they give in. Wow. Egypt started the war, got their land back. Lebanese resistance, war, Israel withdrew out of southern Lebanon. Hamas, war, they withdrew out of Gaza. What does that tell you? Is there a pattern of something, of some sort? Can someone notice a pattern? Or am I just seeing it? Or am I like... the pattern is they prove to the whole world that they understand the use of force. What can you do? Zionism hasn't shown us a good side. Zionism has proven that it's a violent, genocidal, satanic ideology, supremacist, racist ideology to the core, thrives in the dark, works on manipulation and deflection and lies. And there's a big network supporting them. That's why they're still surviving to this day. Francisco Garcia, good evening, Mahmoud. Greetings from Brazil. Greetings to you too and everyone from Latin America. Have you seen the last video by Norman Finkelstein where he coins the perfect name for a genocidal entity, lunatic state? Yes, good. Good name. I mean, so many names, really. I mean, I find genocidal, satanic death cult appropriate. Lunatic state appropriate. Psycho state, yeah. Yeah, there's lots of names, man. I'll probably put an image and ask you to describe them in one name. And then we'll see how many comments pass through. But I'd love to hear the names that you propose to. Kate, did Saudi MBS try and force Jordan to give Al-Aqsa to be controlled by him? It's not even controlled by Jordan. What are we talking about? Israel controls whatever is happening there. It's as if Jordan has a say. All Jordan says when something happens in Al-Aqsa, Israel goes in with their boots inside the mosque, shooting at people, blindfolding them, killing people inside Al-Aqsa compound. All Jordan has to say is, we condemn. We condemn. Don't do that again. I condemn. Haven't you realized that condemning Israel doesn't work? It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked for all of this time. Why do you think they're going to listen now? Did you show a stick or something? Seriously. Someone's been committing, someone's on a pattern of violence throughout their existence, and you're telling them, oh no, stop. They're psychopathic maniacs. They don't care about you. What are you talking about? Delusional, or just acting or pretending. Do you know what I mean? Iman Salim, 19th century concept using a 20th century colonial fascism to commit a 21st century genocide. That's quite accurate. Guys are saying Iran should tell them it'll be part 2 if they go to Rafah. They clearly can't do anything about it. Look, what we've established so far, that this Rafah thing is all talk so far. Okay, not saying that they won't, but so far it's all talk. It's 4 months of talk. We'll go to Rafah, we have the blah, 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 Rafah. All talk. You haven't done anything. Plus, when they're talking, they're attacking Rafah as well. But they're meaning something bigger. But if you haven't had this invasion of Rafah so far, and you're babbling Rafah, then what are you doing? You're talking. Talking to who? Talking to your people, saying that there's more coming, and talking to Hamas as if somehow you're going to have some leverage or threaten them or scare them, right? These people are not afraid of you. And the Palestinian children are not afraid of you, let alone Hamas, right? Fighters. Who's scared of you in Gaza? You don't mean anything. They know you very well. They know your genocidal, sadistic nature. It's not surprising to them. And all you're doing is creating more fuel for them to get rid of you at some point. So who are you scaring? It's mostly for the Israelis. Because he knows with Hamas, his argument that it's military pressure that will make them concede, make them give in, make them give the Israeli prisoners back. Because don't forget, in the beginning, he was like, only the military pressure will get the Israeli prisoners out. And then he'll say, so far we destroyed this and that and all of the brigades, lies. And we released 130 of our prisoners. You liar. How did you release your prisoners? By negotiating with the ceasefire. So he uses the military campaign as if it led to the release of the prisoners, Netanyahu. And some people are fooled by that. It's like, you ignorant fools. He only got them out by talking with Hamas. By going down, climbing down the tree of arrogance and supremacy, talking, shutting up, submitting to the will of the Palestinian people, and then you had them out. Clearly, because that's how you learn. That's how you listen. They don't listen in other ways. So all this bully talk is just a show off, really, to feed the hunger of the neo-fascists in Israel and their bloodlust. Some people believe there should have been a bigger genocide in Gaza. Some people believe that, and they're on television, live television, they to say that. Journalists and known people in Israel. We should have killed 100,000 from day one. 100,000 civilians. 100,000 civilians. And they talk. And it's fine. You need to understand, it's fine in Israel for you to say that. It's normal. It's acceptable. So, you think 100,000 should have been killed, not 30,000? Oh, okay. All right. This is how this mentality works. Don't be reasoning with them. Mahmoud, is it not cynical that Israel would bash the UN and the UN members while it is the UN that gave them Israel its legitimacy by the UN partition plan? It highlights the irony. It highlights the irony behind all of it. They ridicule the UN. They don't follow anything with the UN. Anything comes with to international law and the UN resolutions, they purely rely on genocidal US veto. Half of US vetoes in history are for Israel. Half of them. Over 80, 90. So for now we've probably reached 100 with this genocide. Half of them for the sake of Israel. Israel. Plus, have you asked yourself something, by the way? Have you asked yourself this question? How many of the world's countries support a Palestinian state? How many? Tell me. Come on. Anyone has an answer? 134. At least. And now you have more. Marvin, close. 134. And more coming. That's saying officially with the thing, okay? How many oppose? Who opposes? The genocidal states of the US, some European countries, most of them, and a couple of other Zionist slaves here and there. That's it. They're talking about Hamas now. Hamas is a terrorist organization, they'll tell you. Imagine how rude. People protecting their land, they'll label them. Use them as a front. All part of a psychological warfare. How many countries labeled them? Do you know how many? 34. Who are they? The United States, EU, Canada, Britain, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, and pathetic little Paraguayan government and the Japanese government. So 83% of the world governments officially support the Palestinians' right to resist through armed struggle. Yet the other minority, they act like they're the international community. They act like they're the international community. You're nothing. You're a fraction. Plus, you don't even represent your people. The United States, the biggest supporter, are you representing your people? No, you're not. Similar to how you didn't represent your people when they opposed your genocide in Iraq and Afghanistan. Hundreds of thousands in the streets, unprecedented numbers. Did they listen? No, they didn't listen. Why? Because they had a plan. They had a plan. They had a geopolitical, economic, financial plan. And they went ahead with it. But remember that when people tell you, oh, the international community this and the international community that, a couple of genocidal Zionist elites sitting in Washington, London, and Paris, and a couple of other capitals. That's it. Jamal Muhammad Mahmoud, I'm confused. Why isn't Hamas calling out Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and others who are commonly referred to in Western press as Israel's allies, and they don't deny it? It's because to them, obviously, they're a political party at the end of the day. They decided to participate in politics. They want to play it as safe as possible. And they know that things might change at some point in the future. Or they wouldn't want to raise tensions and have internal conflicts when you want to focus everything on Israel. They try to get their support somehow. They don't want to give an excuse to the people who tell you, oh, yes, they're bad and they're against the state and they're our enemies and this and that, because you already have some sort of people. I don't know how they say that, but they do. You know, some people talk about it from like a political perspective. They're a threat. They're part of the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. That's a threat to our government, although they're independent from the Muslim Brotherhood, particularly Hamas, by the way. You're talking about an ideology when you talk about the Muslim Brotherhood, by the way, more than an organizational structure. And then you have the people in Saudi Arabia, you have scholars telling you it's forbidden by religion it's forbidden by Islam to support the Palestinian resistance. They'll tell you that. So Hamas, I think they're trying to play it to try and get not increase tensions, right? No, not increase tensions, but try and build bridges perhaps, because they know they might have interest. Don't forget, for example, the government in Egypt. Hamas were in a very bad situation with them in the beginning. When the coup happened, against the bloody coup happened against the elected government of the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi, there were very harsh tensions between Hamas and the Egyptian government. Then slowly they rebuilt and they dealt with them because they need each other. They need to talk. Now, although further away geographically, Saudi Arabia, well, not so far away to be fair, quite close. But Egypt is like in you with Egypt and Gaza. They controlled Gaza for a while. They don't want to break everything, if that makes sense. Being swings, aren't Muslim Brotherhood Wahhabis? No. The Muslim Brotherhood is an ideology. I mean, the movement was established by a man called Hassan al-Banna. They've had so many views in the past, so many changes of views, and you had so many groups splitting from them and affected by the ideology. And you have, like, some people will attribute the ideology, for example, of Osama bin Laden to the Muslim Brotherhood. No. They're not organizationally aligned. And in terms of ideology, a revival of Islam, having it, letting it have more effect in day-to-day life, calling for more political activism, reform, this and that. They changed their tone a lot, especially after the 60s. And then you had many groups splitting away from them. They tried to have some affiliations with Wahhabism. Their founder, he tried to do that. The Wahhabis at the time, from what I've read, they didn't accept it because there's core differences, right? But now when you talk about a Muslim Brotherhood, obviously most of their leadership in Egypt are in prison. Many of them were killed in prison and died in prison. Very few are out who were previously affiliated with them. But now when you talk about the organization, yeah, they have representatives and here and there functioning in some places, but it's more about the ideology. Like Hamas, they were officially Muslim Brotherhood up until 1987, when they wanted to participate in armed resistance. They thought, we need armed resistance against Israel. They asked the Muslim Brotherhood leadership in Egypt. It was that organizational. The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt said, no, it's not the time. So Hamas said, okay, thank you very much. We have our own opinion. And then it was more suited for the state, if that makes sense. There's Muslim Brotherhood ideology in Israel. One of the movements that had Muslim Brotherhood ideology, called themselves the Islamic movement, was in the Israeli government 4 years ago. Short-lived government, but they were there. Netanyahu tried to form a government with them. And why I'm highlighting this is to show you how the interpretation of the ideology can differ from place to place. In Jordan, it's different dimensions, Lebanon, Syria, right? But they're different to Wahhabism, of course. Wahhabism is in reference to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who established Wahhabism primarily against the more Sufi attributes and people, making literal things more sacred than what they are, right? And they used to call them the worshippers of the graves, because many Sufis or other Muslim groups, they like to visit graves a lot. And to Wahhabism, it was like, oh, these people are like idol worshippers, and no, we came to purify the religion, and it needs to be text-based and not focus on dead people or these things, right? And it's obviously mostly in Saudi Arabia. But even if you want to talk about Wahhabism now, it's like it changed so much from the get-go, from the day it was initiated. Now the mainstream religion pushed in Saudi Arabia is really the interpretation of religion that suits the king. In many cases, and that's happened in Islamic history from a very long time ago. The interpretation of religion based on what the people in power want, to a level where they tell you it's religiously not permissible for you, for example, to stand up against the ruler. Some of them say there's severe punishment if you say that. Wali al-Amr, right? The ruler. So that's the common mainstream, really, in Saudi Arabia now. And with Hamas's ideology, it's different to Wahhabism, to a far extent, really. Kate, Saudi, Jordan, UAE remained silent because of their political position, or is it because they were cowards, or they bending their knees to their masters? Look, there are definitely political motives. Each country has its own politics. They're entitled to take the political approach that they want. That's number one. How independent that policy, how not independent, that's a different debate. Okay. Cowards, there's a lot of cowardice. Of course, there's a lot of cowardice in politics, like there's cowardice between human beings. And most people are afraid. Most people are controlled by fear. Why? They'll tell you fear is stronger than love in terms of emotion. And the people in power, the people who control mainstream media, they know that fear is very powerful. So there's a lot of cowardice. There's a lot of cowardice amongst Palestinians as well. Look at the PA in the West Bank. Active people, right? Doing stuff for the sake of their occupier. There's cowardice everywhere. So it's not like reserved to a certain nation or what have you. And then bending their knees to their masters, that would be a very big one, because their masters, they have a big say. They have a very big say, even though it might appear to be different. But it's interesting because I think it's quite a combination, really. For you to bend your knees, you need to be a coward, right? And you'll frame it as a political benefit, as if, we're doing what's good for us and this and that. There's definitely a combination. Kyle Lynch is asking me personally, is there any parts of the Quran you don't agree with? No, I fully agree with everything in the Quran. And from a personal belief, I believe it's the only true and full and complete word of God, or as God is named in Arabic, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But obviously, when you talk about the Quran, you need to understand the difference is, as with many things, is the interpretation. The interpretations vary so much. You will see certain things that will raise your eyebrows. Like, what? Okay, what does that mean? And that's deliberate, for you to think, because the Quran pushes you to think. Contextualizing. So when you look at it from a reader's perspective, someone seeking knowledge, you need to contextualize, understand the word, ideally in Arabic, really, because it was laid down Arabic and prayer is in Arabic if you're a Muslim. Contextualize definition of the word. Why was it revealed? Why did the Prophet get it? At what period? What time? Who interpreted it? How? Back when? The time? What knowledge, what science did we achieve at the time in comparison to now? All of these things are important. But in terms of the word, no, complete full belief, absolute 100% belief, no doubt whatsoever. Tashikoma, do you think Iran is giving Israel a signal when they hijacked the ship in the Persian Gulf? Absolutely, they gave them a signal. They gave them a signal by saying, we control the sea. The Iranian Navy is stronger than the Israeli Navy. It's important to know that. They did it just before their attack. So I published a video on the day saying, oh, hold on, Iran is signaling that we're coming to you from where you didn't expect. But then they still have the attack. They still had the attack. But obviously they're showing Israel, you're not safe anywhere. It's not just a message to Israel. It's a message to everyone. Hormuz Strait. So much of the world's oil goes out of the Hormuz Strait. So Iran said, okay, this is an Israeli ship. Tomorrow it can be a different ship. So it's a message for everyone. Israel on top, but then also other countries. If you want to participate, that's why they sent a message to their neighbors. They said, we respect the neighborly traditions, we respect everything neighborly with all of you, but if any attacks are carried out from within your territories, then we were going to have to retaliate. Jerry FY, hello friend, I'm a huge fan, support, live in California. Thank you so much. Welcome aboard. And to everyone else. Abed, what do you think of the general feeling amongst the general civilian population for Hamas at the moment, I think you mean? Do you think it has evolved over the time of the conflict? Look, when you speak about Hamas, it's mostly really from, Western countries who follow mainstream media. And Arab states, people are more familiar with them. But mainstream media, firstly, the people, not many of them were listening about, but to them, some of them, it was just a thing, right? Israel and Palestine, and Israel is usually good, and we can't criticize them because that would be anti-Semitic, so we'd rather be quiet and shut up to be on the safe side. They didn't know anything. Then you obviously had the government labeling, which is terrorism. What the governments do is terrorism. Labeling someone unjustifiably as something that they're not. That's pure terrorism. They want to control your thought and the way you think. Why did they do that? To justify a genocidal state. So hold on, if they're terrorists, then we can't support them, right? It's wrong. Okay? And where obviously people abide by the law, that doesn't mean you need to believe it, right? And they do that deliberately. They do that deliberately to instill fear in people. In the beginning, everyone was like, oh my God, Israel was attacked by Hamas. Oh my God, they must be so bad. Oh my God, they kidnapped people, poor people, this and that. Obviously, with the brainwashing of the media and all of that. It was easy for them to get away with it. That's why I initially said it was so stupid from Israel, just for its own image to continue, because then people would start to dig more. It's like you want them to believe your lie, that you're protecting yourself from these people. So stop. They attacked you. Play the victim. No, they went out and showed their true side, their true image, a genocidal, satanic, supremacist, racist state. That has always been like that. But has been committing genocide by dipping. Now it went full throttle. Now it's the whole shebang all at once. Okay, people started asking, so hold on a second, you said they just committed a barbaric act against you, but you're committing 1,000 times worse barbaric act against them? Oh, and the mainstream media obviously didn't tell you that Hamas took down the Gaza division, right? In an hour. They just told you about the civilian places where Israel massacred its own people. This is what they told you, disregarding evidence that came from Israel that Israel massacred its own civilians on the 7th of October in the Nova Festival and in the kibbutzes, as confirmed by Israelis and by pilots that were published in Israel, for heaven's sake. Just read up. So obviously then people started to say, hold on a second, no, why? Why? This is wrong. What's happening? Shifted. Most people did a 180. Did a 180. It evolved a lot and it's still evolving. Why? Because you're opening the books, not of this conflict, not of this genocide. You're opening the books of history. You're questioning everything now. You're not just questioning Palestine. You're not just questioning Gaza. You're questioning 9/11. You're questioning Afghanistan. You're questioning Vietnam. You're questioning the World War II narrative. Everyone is questioning that. So hold on a second. Who wrote that? Are they the same people trying to sell me that this is good? Are they the same people? If that's the case, then I will doubt everything. I will doubt everything I was told about that history. So long it was written by the same people who are telling me this now. And you see a pattern, especially in social media, where all of a sudden you will see so many random things popping out. In most recent history, mostly from the September 11th to this day. What happened? Who did it? Is it actually the story that we were told? Is it right? Is it true? People are digging in everything. It's as if they found the archaeological evidence, but it's still full of soil. And now they're digging bit by bit to try and find stuff. So it changed everything, really. Marvin Vergus, in terms of Palestinian refugees, what nations have been good to Palestinians, able to prosper, get some wealth? Do you think these groups want to come back to Palestine? Well, the only country, to my knowledge, Arab country, that granted Palestinian refugees full citizen rights is Syria. Lebanon, not a citizen status, not exactly a citizen status. Saudi Arabia, you can't get full Saudi citizenship. Obviously, Jordan is a separate story because it's formed of 70% Palestinians. And Egypt might have been also a country that granted thing, but in terms of thriving, they'll thrive anywhere. Like in the West Bank and Gaza, they just leave them alone, really. If they're left alone, they'll thrive. Look, they're making something out of nothing in Gaza now. They will thrive everywhere. Just leave them alone. But you have this genocidal entity on your neck 24/7, saying that they're entitled to everything because God promised them that. And I must believe them, of course. You know what I mean? So there are countries that have been better than others in terms of, mind you, there are lots of communities obviously everywhere in the world, and in Latin America, everywhere. In terms of people coming back, if let's say there's liberation and what have you, yeah, I think many would come back. Many would come back, especially in the nearest locations, but many from abroad too. Like the biggest amount of refugees is literally in the countries the closest to Palestine. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. These are the countries with the majority of Palestinian refugees. Globally, you have lots of communities. And some of them will probably decide to come back at some point, if they're able to, of course, because now Israel tells them no. Of course, why not? Because you're not Jewish. But no, I have a key. I have a document proving that I lived there. I don't care. But you promised me when the war ends, I'll come back. I lied. Go and sue me. Go to the ICJ. Let's see what they say. This is how they treat them. And that's it. Yeah, we'll wrap it there then. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for your valuable contributions. All of your comments, and I'm sorry if I missed some of them, by the way. I've been here for almost 2 hours now. I can stay with you for much longer, but you know, we have our limits. Thank you so much for everyone who sent super thanks. I really appreciate them, and you support my work massively. I published, like I said, the other video. It was published about just over an hour ago. You can go ahead and watch it. I will hopefully be with you tomorrow, unless I go to sleep at like 7 or something, right? But hopefully I'll be with you tomorrow. Thank you to all of you. Much love, and have a good rest. Have a good night, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.